That's how you know somebody doesn't respect you. They listen to reply, not to be understood. They cut you off. They minimize what actually matters to you. They laugh at your boundaries, and then they call you sensitive when you try to hold the line. They show up late, they cancel last minute, forget the things you've told them, because in their world, your time, your energy, even your voice aren't a priority. They're just an option. You see, there are two kinds of people: those who adjust when they realize they've actually hurt you, and those who expect you to adjust so they don't have to change. You don't need to be disrespected loudly to be disrespected deeply. Sometimes you'll see it, it's just in their tone, in their patterns, in the silence after you're known. Respect isn't what they say when they're watching, it's how they act when they think you'll tolerate it. His own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the force of the Cold War.
And so it was a way of making me feel that they were a part of it.
You see it on the screen. If the government had to change the school in the grid, they have to shut it down. We got state troopers out there. We got planes flown. We got the strange machine.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Peace, blessings, glory, praise, and honor to the Most High. Happy Wednesday, good people. I hope all is well with you. I hope you staying cool, calm, and collected going into Thursday. Shout outs to my poets, writers, content creators, etc., so on and so forth. You know what time it is. This is the part of the week where we unwind a little bit. We get away from the relationship talk, the politic talk. And I'm glad to have this segment every Wednesday. Do me a solid, like, share, repost, let the people know that we are on. The young lady that we are about to be graced with is going to do her thing here shortly. I just wanted to give her flowers and say thank you to everybody who tunes in and supports and shows love each and every single week that we do these. You have topics that you would like to see discussed up here, email, shoot me a message. We'll make it happen, especially if it's related to science or anything of that nature. With that being said, Sydney, I will give you the floor, let you do your thing, and I got my snacks. I will be tuned in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sydney, and I am here to talk about in the United States in particular, the record delinquencies on utilities. But first, I just wanted to give you a little background on who I am so you kind of know what I do and what I'm interested in. I have my background in environmental education. I'm also a writer. I have a new book out called Collapsing Together. And my book is more of like a social commentary, but it definitely includes some of what we're going to talk about today. So I'll probably end with one of the poems from the book. But I really wanted to talk about this because this is a major issue that I think everyone's feeling, but it doesn't seem to be talked about in mainstream media very much. I've heard it from YouTubers online, but I don't really see it talked about very much on the large news media sites. So I thought it would be important to talk about this, especially because, while it sounds bad, there are resources available for people. So I also wanted to make sure that if anyone was in this situation, they'd know about the options that they have, because utilities are quite important. They're definitely up there with food and shelter in importance. And with everything that's happening right now, I think it's really important to kind of talk about what's going on. So to start off, I think it's important to define what utilities are. I'm sure you probably could guess, but just in case, utilities can be categorized by different types, but typically the utilities refer to electricity, water, gas. They also can include sewage, internet, cable TV, phone, trash and recycling. But for the purpose of this discussion, I'm mostly going to be focusing on electricity and gas, as well as a little bit into water. Water is kind of its own thing, so I won't go as much into it, but it will definitely be talked about. Both, and this obviously applies to homes as much as it applies to businesses, because whether we like to admit it or not, increases in utility prices for businesses is going to simultaneously increase the prices of goods as they try and make up for it. So, yeah. But as I said, for the purpose of this discussion, I'm mostly going to be talking about gas and electric, and a tad bit on water. So the problem that I'm discussing today is the fact that I don't know how frequently this has happened in the past, because we've definitely been living in a different world now. But currently we have a ton of people defaulting or having delinquent debt on their utilities. Since 2022, energy bills have jumped about 35%, and the number of households with overdue utility debt jumped by 117,000 people. Currently, about 14 million Americans are facing debt in the utility arena. And this is actually slightly outdated. This was a report done in November 2025. So I imagine that with the recent changes to gas prices, that number is going to go up even more. Since 2022, the average overdue balance on utility bills went from $597 to $789, which is a 32% increase. And about 1 in 20 households have utility debt so severe that it was sent to or will be sent to collections. So by the time I'm reading this, you can definitely expect that there's probably a lot more people or a lot more debts being sent to collections since then. Since it's been 6 months now since this article was written. I'm pretty sure it's the same for utilities, but with debt, once it's 3 months delinquent, that's usually when it's sent to collections. If they have not heard from you, if you have not set up a payment plan, if you basically just ignore them, usually 3 months is when they transfer that to a collections agency. So within 6 months, I bet there's been a lot more transfers to collection services. And once things go to collections, typically like credit card debt, they'll start to accrue interest, and I don't know if it accrues interest, but I'm pretty sure they probably have penalties. And unfortunately, they're also showing there's some cultural disparities, likely due to a bunch of factors besides just race, but there is actually a distinction between white households and other households. As of June of 2025, Black households were 3 times as likely as white households to have overdue balances. And as well as Asian customers had the highest overdue utility balances, approaching $900 compared to $750 for white consumers. My guess is it has a lot to do with like cultural factors, hiring factors, location, a whole bunch of things. But that is definitely notable. And really indicates how unfair the system really is, for it to be affecting people unequally. In poorer regions of the country, the rate is twice as high. In Appalachia, which is the mountainous regions along Virginia, West Virginia, the Carolinas. They have about 1 in 10 households overdue and having debt so severe that it's going to or already has been sent to collections. Let's see. On the Atlantic coast and the Midwest, they have some of the highest balances overall, where they have about $1,500 on average of overdue balances. So this is not just affecting certain parts of the country. This is affecting everywhere. It's just some of them are having different problems than others. As I said, the South and Appalachia are being sent to collections in larger quantities. The Atlantic coast and Midwest have higher quantities of that debt. And in the Northeast, as well as states like Texas and Arizona, they are struggling with the highest average costs for electricity and for gas. So, this is a state or countrywide problem. This is not just like the expensive states, just like I know everyone loves to talk about California and Texas and the cost of utility. Hawaii is another one. But this is across the board. This is poor regions of the country. This is wealthier parts of the country. So this is not just a poor people problem or a regional problem. This is a country problem. So for the debt crisis, part of the reason why this is happening is because we're already struggling with high prices. Everything around us is increasing in cost, from food to gas prices to the cost, everything. Basically everything that we rely on is seeing a massive increase in prices overall. And this basically compounds onto this pre-existing financial crisis. Not only are people burdened with more credit card debt than ever, people are having poor job opportunities. They are like some people just cannot find any work at all. We have people that are struggling with increasing mortgages and rent, and they're saddled with student loan debt. They're saddled with medical debt. There's the food prices, gas prices. All of those complicate trying to afford utility costs. At face value, it can look like the prices for electricity and gas is not that expensive. For example, in some of the cheapest states for electricity, it's around $100 to $150. Idaho, 110, Louisiana, 150 at either end of the spectrum. For commercial electricity, which you're running a business, you have a commercial building, the prices can be way more, but it's likely due to usage rather than oh, you're a business, so we're going to charge you more. In that case, it can range from like $430 into the thousands per month. As I said a little bit ago, some of the most expensive states for electricity include Hawaii, Massachusetts, California, and Alaska. For Hawaii, the higher bill is because most of their energy has to be imported. Fuel is required to run most of these systems, and in Hawaii, it has to be imported in. They don't have ready access to a steady supply of gas and oil, which is used to run this infrastructure. And then in Alaska, those high prices are because of how remote Alaska is. And similar to Hawaii, it takes more to get more and longer to get fuel sources to their electrical grids. And they also face more difficult climatic conditions. And so that will end up also affecting the price of electricity and gas. For the most expensive states, in Hawaii, you can expect a bill that could be as much as $200 a month. California, $150 a month. Connecticut is almost $200 a month. Rhode Island, $160. Maine, $145. For commercial costs, Hawaii, $1,200. Rhode Island, almost $500. California, $1,200. So these places can be extremely pricey. If you are already paying hundreds of dollars of debt each month, and you're paying for the car payment, and you're paying for the mortgage or rent, and you're paying for student loans, and you have medical, if you have the whole conglomeration, adding an additional $100 to $200 just for electricity is a lot. Because again, this is just electricity. This doesn't include water services, sewage services, trash services, internet, a phone if you have it, a cell phone if you have it. Some people have both still. So that is just adding on top of these exorbitant bills that people are paying. And so if you could easily be spending more than $1,000 a month just on bills. So it's, even though the prices, as I said, at face value seem not that bad, like, oh, 100, that's not too bad. Keep in mind, it's just for electricity. It's not factoring in all the other costs. With water bills, average highest is West Virginia, 105, Oregon, 88. Let's see where California sits. California's number 5 at $76. So again, if you just add electricity and water together, you could be spending as much as $300 to $400 just on that. And so, yeah, these prices are modest on their own, but when you accumulate all of them together, it can make it extremely unmanageable for people to afford all of the things that they need. Average grocery costs, I think, are between $500 and over $1,000 if you're not eating out per family. So yeah, the cost of living as a whole compounds on top of this existing issue, which is why we're seeing such a rapid increase in people being delinquent on the cost for utilities, because they're competing with so many other different things. And if you have to choose between food and having the lights on, some people are going to make sure that at least they can eat, because you can find ways around not having the lights on, not having gas and heat. But there's no way around not being able to eat, and potentially like having the water services to your house. So yeah, we are struggling already with all of these different costs together. And again, this doesn't even factor in the usage of this energy. If you have a lot of kids, if you have a lot of like extra things around the house, like if you have an electric car and you charge it at your house, if you have like a jacuzzi or super high intensive appliances, those can also increase the costs. There's also a bunch of other aspects that affect the pricing. One of which is the region that you're in, for a bunch of different reasons, actually. One, local conditions of the climate, the weather patterns you can expect will change how much electricity can cost. If you have frequent storms, they'll have to change the way that they build that infrastructure to make sure that it is able to withstand more easily high winds, heavy rain, rising tides if you're along the beaches and there's frequent flooding, earthquakes, like all sorts of different disasters and weather conditions. If you have frequent ice, that is a huge impactor, especially on electrical wires, because if you have what do you call it? Why am I blanking? Not for, oh my God, why am I blanking on this? Ice storms. If you have ice storms, the ice collecting on the power lines can pull them down. And so there's a lot more effort that needs to be in play to maintain electrical systems, particularly where the weather is more undesirable or inconsistent or volatile. So if you live in areas where there's storms frequently, cold or warm, you probably are going to see higher costs of utilities just to make up for the cost of repair. And then of course, when there is damage, there's all sorts of issues that come with that as well. Higher costs afterwards, the issues of getting reestablished, reconnected to the grid. Sometimes these companies will, like, now that you're getting reestablished, we have a new rate. Prices in California, for example, are changing because of wildfires, and the lines capacities to trigger a wildfire, and certain areas are now being, I don't know if banned is the right word, but they're trying not to have power lines go through specific areas, which can also increase the cost from having to redirect it and find different ways to give the energy to those communities. And then local regulations can also change how much electricity or gas costs in those regions, depending on, as I said, location, the type of political climate, how rural it is. All of these things, laws as well in place to make sure people are using utilities also add to the pricing. There's some municipal mandates that require certain utilities, certain hookups in homes. And if you are, as we call, stealth disconnecting, you can face fines, you can actually face eviction. So it can be cost prohibitive based on where you're living. Another thing that's going on is utility companies, not all of them, not all states, not all locations, but some of them are successfully lobbying to basically penalize solar owners. So if you have solar panels in certain regions, sometimes they'll have established rate structures that charge solar owners for the energy that they're producing. So it can be problematic in certain regions if you're generating your own power, because they might make you pay them, which is completely ironic. There are some states that allow companies to buy the solar energy off of you. But again, there are some states that have more predatory practices than others. It really depends on where you're living, and how supportive they are of green infrastructure and more renewable resources. It's much easier for companies to control finite resources than it is to manage or to make money off of wholly existing resources like the sun and the wind, which don't go away. So where was I? There's a quote I wanted to find here. Okay, so in 12 different states, there's about 20 fossil fuel backed in special interest groups that are trying to they're trying to impact how like metering is done, like where they measure how much electricity you're using, to basically create fees on demands and again penalize people for having solar systems on their homes. I've even heard some particular areas like the HOAs banning solar because they don't like the way it looks. I don't know how, I don't think that's super prevalent, but I have heard of that happening on occasion. So to a degree, sometimes the cities are at fault for these higher costs, irregardless of what the weather and climate patterns are like. Additionally, from the federal government, there's also an effort to block the usage of renewable energy. As of April 2026, a U.S. district judge of the U.S. District Court halted 5 administrative orders that basically prevented the construction of utility scale solar and wind power projects. The new policies that they enacted prevented energy developers from building several projects that would have provided electricity to communities, but because of those policies, they had to cancel or delay their building progress. Luckily, as I said, this judge blocked that that policy change, but it just shows the uphill battle that people will face when environmentalists and communities are trying to make the switch to renewable energy. So yeah, there's additionally the federal government getting involved in this in ways that are detrimenting the population, instead of helping lower any costs. As I kind of mentioned with Hawaii earlier, and Alaska, accessibility also can affect pricing. If you live in regions that are small, poor communities, that don't have a lot of economic connections to the system as a whole in the same way that like big cities do, it can be far more expensive to get connected to the grid, because it's basically not worth the cost to build there. They don't make enough money and won't make the companies enough money to make the introduction of that infrastructure or maintenance of that infrastructure worth it. It's the same reason why a lot of really small towns have basically no chains and like highly valuable companies located there, with exception of like McDonald's, other fast food restaurants, gas stations, dollar stores, because it's just not profitable enough for these companies to establish themselves in those communities. This was a little bit ago, probably like, I don't know, 6 months ago, so I don't remember the exact details, but I was watching a documentary on rural communities, and I forgot exactly what it was about anyways. But they're talking about how a lot of the really small communities didn't actually get internet until like the mid to late 2000s, some of them into the early 2010s. And it was only when companies basically like tricked them, I guess, into getting the internet connection as a way to get their votes. And there's some other aspects to it, but yeah, some of these communities don't actually get these utilities. You're more likely to see rural communities relying on septic tanks, or being off grid, so that can be pretty problematic, especially in terms of money, because if your community is hard to reach, hard to maintain, you don't have as much of an income, you might end up seeing higher prices because they're trying to make up for the fact that you're expensive to provide to. There's also the other element of if you're farther away, it costs more to bring you that electricity, gas, water, whatever. And so it can increase the prices that way as well, just because it costs more to do the stuff that it takes to get it to you. Another thing that's affecting the prices right now is the most of the grid, a large proportion of the grid was built in the 40s, 50s, 60s. So, and the lifespan of most power pole electric systems are generally 50 years. So we're at what? We're approaching 70, 80 years So a lot of the power infrastructure is very old and is starting to fall apart, is starting to see the signs of its aging. But obviously, it takes a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of, like, you have to shut off the electricity, you have to close roads. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into repairing the electrical grid. And so that also increased costs because the aging infrastructure breaking more frequently, you need more fixes, so then it costs more if you're using from those grids. If you're getting grid upgrades, then they're going to charge you more to make up for the money that they're spending. We obviously have an issue with people not paying their fair share of taxes, and you know exactly what group of people I'm talking about. This would have been able to help pay for these things, but because we've more privatized the industry, it gives them more liberty to do so with higher expenses than if this was more of a public system. Additionally, can't forget to mention the gas prices. As gas prices go up, the cost of this is going to continue going up. Most of these systems require gas and oil somewhere along the way for production, whether it's running the machinery, the storage processes, the gas itself is provided into homes for things like the oven. Sometimes heaters use gas. So the cost, and then also, not to mention, if you're shipping in fuel and supplies needed to maintain your system, that stuff is also going to be more expensive as well. Because we all know if it costs more to ship something, the people who are selling you those things are going to charge you more for those things because they're not going to eat those costs. They want you to eat those costs. So as gas prices increase, we are definitely going to see an increase in people not being able to afford their utilities. And I mean, I'm going to throw this out there now before I forget. People not being able to afford utilities is a huge red flag for the economy. If you're doing so poorly that you're having to rely on debt to pay for food, and you are choosing between having lights on in your home and having medical care or having gas in your car, there's something extremely wrong with the economy. So that's just something to consider going into the future. And also, do not feel ashamed if you're one of these individuals that cannot afford your utilities. It's not just you. This is a countrywide and in some cases global problem. So don't feel bad if this is affecting you. It's definitely not your fault. Another thing that is affecting the pricing is similar in other industries around the country. We have a very low skill pool to pick from. People are not going into blue collar jobs nearly as much anymore. A lot of people are going for the corporate positions, the higher paying like service positions, the more readily available like customer service type positions. Yeah, there's a lot more jobs that get favor over blue collar jobs. And in my opinion, the decrease in the number of kids gaining technical skills from their parents and from their neighbors and stuff like that, there's very little incentives nowadays to have hands-on experience in the more mechanical type work. I mean, 50 years ago, people would grow up being taught like woodworking and basic plumbing and how to manage their cars, and how to do hands-on things by themselves without needing other people to do it for them. Let me just make sure why are you not charging? My laptop is complaining to me about the energy, ironically. Maybe it's not happy with the pricing. But no. People nowadays don't really invest in manual skills anymore. And because we have so few kids coming out into the workforce with those types of skills or even interests in those types of jobs, they have a severe staffing shortage. There's also a high turnover rate where people that join the industry do not stay in the industry very long. And the people that have been in for a long time are set to retire. A lot of the people currently staffed in the energy industry are boomers, the boomer generation. They're older generations, and because of their age group, there's a high percentage that are set to retire soon. So there's an impending, even greater shortage in the coming years to decades. Although I would say probably within this current decade that we'll end up seeing it. And part of the reason why staffing issues are such a problem is it really, really slows down the progress of a bunch of the stuff that I mentioned earlier. When there are disasters and there is a destruction of part of the grid, high wind storms knock over the power lines, ice buildup breaks the power lines, all sorts of issues that can come with storms and natural disasters affecting the grid, the water systems, sewage systems, all that stuff. If you have fewer people, it takes much longer to get them back up and running. And of course, there's a economic detriment if your company, your home, is not able to be up and running after disasters. If you're kind of pushed out and you can't run your business, you can't work, however it's affecting you. If you don't have enough people to fix these problems, it's going to, one, make it more expensive to actually get this help because you're fighting over a smaller pool of people. But it also really slows down the speed of repair. And in some cases, it can even completely prevent things from being reestablished. There's certain fire affected regions of the country that still don't have things completely connected yet. And it's been like years for some of those locations. So poor staffing is another pretty big issue. And it's not surprising given the climate of this culture right now. People don't want to get dirty and they look down on white blue collar jobs because, well, that's the jobs for poor people. Like there's so much stigma going towards people that have blue collar positions, but it's a surprisingly high paid position. So if you're looking for jobs, that would definitely be an industry to look in. Just keep in mind as it does have the physical type of manual labor that a lot of people are not accustomed to anymore. So, and then also depending on what parts of the company you want to do, what jobs you want to do, you might have to get specialized education. But it is a pretty high paying career. So if you need a job, maybe look at the power industry and help others have lower costs, because there isn't staffing shortages. But beside the point. Another big issue, which is one of my key points that bothers me, I want to talk about, is natural monopolies. Some of these places, a lot of these places are like, you can only get your gas and electricity from a single company. Depending on where you're located, they might only have a single option for you to get your gas and electric. There's two types of systems. There's regulated markets and unregulated markets. Did I close my map? I did close my map. Where did it go? Oh no, there it is. Not all states. This is a state by state kind of breakup. Regulated states mean that you don't have a choice of who you can get your electricity from. And that is problematic, because if you do not have a choice on where you can go, there's no market competition. So they can set the rate to whatever they want, and there's no price shopping. There's no way that you can be like, oh, well, like we have for internet plans. A lot of people have the option, like, you can go with Sprint, you can go with AT&T, you can go with Verizon or whatever. Like, there's a whole bunch of them. And so if you don't like the pricing, you can switch to somebody else. And if you go too high, you start losing customers. And so it incentivizes lower costs or cost moderation. So in regulated, energy regulated states, you don't have that option. And so you might end up seeing higher priced goods. I mean, energy sources. There's also there's also the other side, deregulated market, where you have a choice. You're able to pick between providers, which gives you more of an opportunity to at least adjust the cost to match what you need. They might have different plans for, like, kind of like with phone plans, the old versions of phone plans, where you have like minutes and you can pick how many minutes you want and how much that would cost, and whether you're going to use the internet versus calling and texting. It's kind of similar to that, but instead it's for like gas and electric, stuff like that. Currently there's, let's see how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, roughly half the country is deregulated and the other half is regulated. The deregulated states as of 2021, we have California, Arizona, Colorado, what state is that? Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas, Texas, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, Wisconsin, Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, all the New England states except for Vermont and Maine. Everyone else is regulated. So in all of those states that I just mentioned, you'd get an option between companies. However, they do also only apply to certain categories. So for the New England states, with exception of, I think that's Connecticut and Maryland. I don't know what that one is. And then as well as Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, they're deregulated for both electricity and for natural gas. California, the Midwest, Georgia, Florida, and the Appalachia region in Indiana, Kentucky, the Virginias, they're deregulated for natural gas only, but they're regulated for electricity. And then Maine, Vermont, I don't know what state that is. The one next to Maine. That they don't have labels on this map. Connecticut, again, I don't know what state that is. I think that's DC. DC region and Texas has electricity only being deregulated, and natural gas is not. So you're gonna, depending on the state you're at, some of it might be regulated, some of it might be deregulated, but at least in 50% of the country, you have some options where the rest of the country does not. You're only going to be able to get it from that one company in the region that you're at. The other huge issue, again, one of my sore spots and what I like to talk about, is AI centers. They are the up and coming issue for utility prices and costs and stuff like that. There's a theory that I definitely adhere to, that AI companies are going to come in and try and take control of the electrical grid and basically like become the owners of the electrical grid, and then we are going to have to pay them for the electricity, which I would definitely believe. It just hasn't progressed all the way to that point yet, but I definitely know they're trying. Next Era Energy just bought Virginia-based Dominion on May 18th, making it the world's largest utility company. And they basically are, they're connected with AI data centers. So yeah, they're trying to acquire these utility companies that we rely on. And you bet that with these AI centers owned by these massive billionaires, we're going to see price increases if they start to buy up our utilities. I won't even get into water. That would have to be its own thing, but they're like, I think it's like upwards of 70% of water resources are owned by like a few companies. But yeah, AI is working alongside AI companies to acquire energy companies as if they are, as if it's theirs, as if it belongs to them. So we can definitely expect prices to increase as they vie for control of our electrical grid. And they're likely going to use the ploy of, well, we use more of it, so we should have the right to distribute it as we please, which would be very problematic. We already see how it's going. They move into communities. They take out all the electricity to the point that people are having power outages. They are running out of water because that's also going to these AI centers, and it causes environmental damage. They're putting out pollutants into the air and water. So they don't care about our communities. They care about the money that they can make with their AI data centers. So it's super, super important to, if you find out that AI centers are trying to move in on your area, participate in the protests. They are working. There are multiple communities I've heard that have kicked out these AI giants from being able to establish themselves there. But they're very powerful companies. So if you hear of them trying to move into your communities, fight it if you can, in whatever way you can. Because we don't want to get to the point where we cannot afford utilities. There's a lot of consequences to not having access to regular utilities. Countries that do not have access to clean, fresh water have higher incidences of diseases, of water transmitted bacterial and fungal and viral infections. You might have to rely on unsafe water sources that have lead or arsenic in it. I've heard of some people that are relying entirely on bottled water to take baths, to drink, to cook. And those are, I'll look after. All right, 5 more minutes. Which is way, way more expensive than what you're getting out of the tap. It also contributes to the plastic pollution problem. If you are missing electricity, if you don't have electricity during heat waves or cold snaps, you can die in your homes. It can become so cold that you freeze inside your home, or you overheat inside your home. There are trailers and RVs, parks that have had a lot of people die during heat waves because they couldn't afford, or they didn't have access to consistent heat or air conditioning, based on the whatever's happening. Additionally, some people rely on electricity for running medical devices, and if you have your electricity cut off and you rely on oxygen or rely on other sorts of things that help your body function, connected to electricity, you could potentially pass away. And this has happened. There was a story in 2023 where a woman passed away because I think it was her breathing machine, she wasn't able to run it because she had her electricity cut off, and she passed away. I've heard of people having heart attacks because they're like pacemakers, or like the electronic things that they have inside their body died and they passed away. This is not an isolated incident. There's a lot of stories that I've seen of people with medical fragility passing away because of their lack of access to utilities. And then, as I mentioned earlier, a higher cost of goods. When you have higher costs to provide oil, gas, electric, water, all that fun stuff, it's going to transfer to you, especially if it's the stores, the businesses that are experiencing this increase in utilities. It can make it so the goods that they sell have to increase as well. So if you have high prices in your area, you're also probably going to have a higher price of goods, because it's not just the homes, it's the businesses as well that have to pay these high costs. Luckily, there are laws. You do have rights when it comes to your electricity, to your utility bills. For one, the companies are required to offer you repayment plans. So if you just have your gas or electric or whatever cut off without notice, that is illegal. And you can definitely find a lawyer that will support you. because that is against the law. They are not allowed to do that. They are required to offer you a repayment plan. If you rely on medical devices, they also are not allowed to cut off your power. They're required to help, like offer options, delays, stuff like that, because it can be fatal. And then they also have restrictions on cutting off people's electricity or gas, stuff like that during weather hazards. So if there's a heat wave, if there's a blizzard, they're not allowed to cut the power to your home. That is illegal. So if any of those things happens to you, please seek out a lawyer because that is illegal. They are not allowed to do that to you. If you are struggling with your utility bills, there are organizations that can help in various ways. There's the LIHEAP. I'm going to actually post the names of that in the chat, which, as well as the WAP programs, which can help you pay for heating, cooling, and home weatherization. I don't know what that means actually. Let me pull up. This one was not a good. Where did that go? Okay. So the LIHEAP program is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, and it provides assistance to eligible low-income households with the goal of managing and meeting their immediate home heating or cooling needs. So they're able to offer financial assistance to help balance a utility bill. They're able to provide assistance to low-income households that are in a crisis situation. If you receive if you receive a disconnect notice, contact the energy company right away. Do not ignore it. Do not ignore it. Even if you have no money at all, do not ignore them because that will only make things worse. Going to collections, once it goes to collections, it's much harder to work with the company. It affects your credit. Like there's a whole bunch of negative outcomes to things going to collection. It's also harder to barter for a different cost. So if you do get a disconnect notice, contact the utility company, contact one of these programs because they can help you with that. For the LIHEAP, they would, if you receive that disconnect notice or service termination, they'd be able to step in and make sure that that doesn't happen. They also provide energy efficiency upgrades to low-income households that can lower your monthly costs, which include like changing out the windows, changing insulation, fixing the roof, a bunch of different things that, like, if your windows are leaking and you have a high heating bill, that's probably why. Stuff like that. And then they also have like education services to teach you more about like energy efficiency and stuff like that. They also offer budget counseling. In some states, they also have like federal funding to help people. And there's also the WAP program. Utilities. What is the name of that one? The Weatherization Assistance Program. That one is the U.S. Department of Energy program. So it's through the federal government, and it reduces energy costs for low-income households. So similar to why did I close that? I need to copy and paste that. Let Okay, so did I just close that? No, there it is. So they can help you as well. One of their statistics is through this program, you can save $300 or more per year just on fixing up your home to make it less or more energy efficient. So those programs are available to you, but I cannot emphasize more. Do not ignore these notices. If you cannot afford your electricity, your power, don't be embarrassed. Again, this is happening to a lot of people. We are struggling. Like even I myself have to rely on family to help afford some of our basic needs in the family. So don't feel bad. Call them, and they'll often be fairly reasonable. What you don't want to do is ignore them, because that can cause more problems. So definitely reach out to these government programs. There's also going to be localized programs as well. So yeah, there are resources. It's not a situation that you should be like panicked about, because again, there are laws that protect you, and there are services there to help you. So let me copy before so there's this program and the WAP program. So those are the two federal government programs. And again, look into your local region as well. And they might also have some like regional services. So with that, I wanted to end with a poem that is touching on the overwhelm. And I thought it was appropriate because it talks about how difficult it is for people to kind of maintain what we have been used to maintaining. So I'll read that, and then I'll have a tiny little blurb at the end to close. But this is the end of the informational section. I hope it was very useful and assuaged concern of anybody that might be going through something similar. So this poem is called Ling Chi, which, if you're not familiar with what that term means, it means death by 1,000 cuts, which I felt is very appropriate for what we're going through right now in this economic environment. I was washing dishes. I gazed out the whitewashed wooden window, roses in the breeze, yellow and red, gently waving as if to beckon to me. I observed the empty blue sky and began to wonder about life. Think about my kids, my spouse, my dog, my house. I wander in my mind as I wash the knife. We can't carve out enough time for them all. Between bills and appointments and academic commitments, we sever our ties with the loved ones in our lives. We cut off our ears to make peace with the noise, and we slice through the day without stopping for joy. At home, I am not fun, and at work, I am under the gun from my bosses, from my coworkers, from the people on the street, in our homes, in our offices, in our schools, and even at the pool. No matter where we are, the threat of violence is never far. But my hands need to stay busy, riding the razor-thin tightrope of time and quality as they work for the work of once three. Cutting it close, my fingertips ache. Is it knobs for my job digging in, or is it the nubs I chew them to be? No wonder everything sucks these days. No time, no focus. We all have to work. Our bleeding red accounts hint to how close we cut it every week to pay, to eat, to sleep, for our lights, for our heat. We can't just take our own axes and go chop wood, or snip wicks off the candles from the fat of our steers. We can't just do what we want. We don't own anything. After all, we are the cattle. living in wooden shanties they allow us to live in, walking across mud flats they maintain for us, consuming the products they made for us to make us sick and fat. We chew our cud as they tag us, steal our children, and milk us dry. And when we are done, they usher us in masses to the chute and whisked to the butcher for our final use. We are not cut out for this life. For a moment, my hand ballet taps along the absent, taunting boundary between insignificance and pain, just like our own waltz on the edge, with our health and our wealth, and the friends that we keep like a doll on the shelf, those we only choose to display for special occasions, fiddling with loss like a loose thread on that button we'll never fix. We don't love one another. We don't love ourselves. We use one another. We use ourselves, like we are tools instead of a temple. We seek any existence other than our own. We bathe in percentages and weight measures, consuming cutting-edge fashion for sharp new looks. Every weekend, though knowing TV lies, we buy and buy, using knives of debt to tell ourselves we are worthy. Use our scars to brag that we are whole, even as we let others drag their blades across our pristine paint. We allow it so we can have the excuse to subject ourselves to the pain of needles and stitches. We bleed for those who hurt us. We stare straight into the eyes of the ones who stab us, straight through the heart. We forgive those who backhand us, backstab us, and backtrack us, letting them leave their notches like we are their tally stick of success. Instead, we dig into ourselves with our nails, a tiny nick, a tick, towards our eventual end. We chip at ourselves for others. We dare whittle ourselves away for acceptance, yet do not have the courage to par away our own excess to create our greatest form. A bright red rose petal reaches into the sky, as if plucked into a frenzy by an invisible hand, for connection. And suddenly, I'm back in my feet, and in my hands is a knife, and on the blade is my reflection. So I thought that would relate in the sense that we, from every direction, food, utilities, housing costs, not being able to find a job, childcare costs, medical costs, we are struggling. We're getting cut from all different directions, and everyone is struggling. So if you're in this situation, do not feel embarrassed. Do not feel bad. You didn't do anything wrong. This is a system that has been set up to hurt us and take advantage of us. So again, it's not your fault. This is how the system has been set up to take advantage of us. So I hope you're able to take something from this video. I hope you're able to learn a little bit about how electricity works for you, utilities, why this issue is happening. I hope bringing it to your attention also might give you an understanding of why people are struggling so much. And if you need these resources, I hope this actually helps you and gives you an opportunity to recover in the way that you need. So I appreciate anybody watching. And again, I am grateful I had this opportunity to talk about this with you, and I really hope this helps. So I will be back on Friday. Obviously, my next show will be next Wednesday. So I'm excited to see you guys again. And I will talk about water at some point in the near future as well, because that is a whole other monster. I would have definitely need a whole new show just for that one. So yeah, I hope you have a very good Wednesday, very good weekend, and yeah, have a good day.
His own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the force of the Cold War.
So it was a way of making me feel that they were a part of it.
You see it only pretty. school in the bridge. They shut it down. We got state troopers out there. We got planes flown. We got those strange machines.